Me like I'm a singer, composer, and also teacher at the Leo Kestenberg School here in Berlin. Currently, very focused on also and another online school as well. So very focused on online teaching at the moment, like most of us are. But I have been very focused on that for the last since pandemic hit us, which also happened to be very well working, which is I guess why I'm invited here today. Have a bunch of different stylistic projects in terms of bands and also solo projects and I'm very excited to meet you all today. And I just before we even continue the introduction, I'm also very very open to just be very vibrant today. Whenever I'm sharing information, you can always just ask in the middle of it. It's not that I'm sticking to a very strict plan, but I have a lot that I can share, and I would be super happy if we just, as far as Zoom is not making it too complicated, kind of just interact with whatever comes to your mind, because I know that it can be a lot sometimes in the beginning when setting up, especially the technical stuff. But that I would recommend you. Just briefly, I will cover up a lot of the best settings here in Zoom for now, and not because the other platforms are not valid. It's simply just because it has been shown that Zoom is still one of the more sufficient platforms when it comes to all kind of teaching, whether it's group teaching or, in my case, the singing teaching. However, I have been using Skype as well when the pandemic hit, simply because I didn't have an advanced Zoom account. And for that, the thing is, like, all the technical information you will get from me today are very generally. It's like based on the Zoom setup, but the general setup is kind of the same in Skype as well. But if any of you have different questions later on, you can feel free to write me. I think maybe we can just share my contact information towards the end. And if, you just write me or get in touch with me, and I'd be happy to also just help you out if there's any other questions, right? But for today, I would like to focus on Zoom. And I have prepared a sheet that I will send afterwards, maybe to Dorlies, and you can forward it to the group, which is covering like the tips and small recommendations, as well as a couple of links to different videos that I have also been researching, where you can, in YouTube, just get a little bit more advanced practice again, or just some tips from other people, whether it is about the Zoom account or about different different experiences from different teachers so far. I will hand this out later so that we can now just like try to follow up like on the live settings. But I will start with the better audio settings, right? So the idea with Zoom is that we all just join with a link. Yeah, and that sounds really easy and cool, but there are certain things that by default are making quality of the sound a little bit worse in Zoom. So not only do we, with a microphone in front of us, have experienced that there is just the idea of using a microphone to enhance our quality of sound, but the reality, like we also see now, is like we are not always able to be in a room where we have a studio setting. So right now I'm, for example, teaching from Barcelona, but in the studio where there are microphones and a better light and access to different devices. But the reality is also that most likely someone will join at some point in a train, or the connection is not, super happening. So sometimes it's also the case that the video quality will be a little bit less good than what we would like it to be. And then it's really important that we can have a good audio setup. So what I would like to do now is if you can make me the host, Dorlies, I will just step by step show you the first steps that I'm doing when I'm setting up Zoom. It's not about, and it's something that you all can do and that you all should be doing. So if you just do this along with me, it's already going to enhance the both video quality as well as the audio quality. And hello to those of you who
I only know how to make you a host when I leave the meeting and make you the host, and then I would return.
No, you can, if you go to my picture, and then on
Okay.
where the three dots are.
Okay.
And then it says you can make me a host.
Host erstellen. Okay. Yes.
And you should
okay.
Questions where it is. But everybody knows where the mute button is, right? So when you mute yourself, right next to this button, there is a tiny little sign, where you can open the settings of the microphones or the built-in speakers. Yeah. So if you go there, on the very bottom of this bar, there's the setting that says audio setting. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't
Are
know.
you
Sorry. Where I don't know.
all good?
Should we try? Can I maybe share my screen and I will follow? Can we try that?
Ah, yeah, of course.
And because I think I understood what, and I will simply guide. I will only show.
That could be cool. Let's see if that works.
But I think the problem is if you share your screen, then Zoom will not show your Zoom
Right.
window.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Right.
Bea, wenn du unten links das Mikrofon hast, dann ist da so ein Pfeilchen da direkt neben. Wenn du auf das Pfeilchen gehst.
No, that's not. It doesn't open because of this. I thought it doesn't function, but it's okay.
Good.
Everything is good.
Yeah.
It's
I
okay
think maybe
then.
that's also why it's easier to not share the screen for now, but just like follow the vocals instruction. So now when we have this open, there is a setting where it's like under the settings you have both the speakers as well as the microphone, right? If you scroll a little bit further down, it says music and professional audio. And under this bar, it says show and meeting option to enable original sound. Can everybody see that? So everybody enable that. That's very important because what this does, it shows in the upper left corner of the Zoom meeting, it's going to show original sound on and off. It's going to enhance the quality of your audio. Basically, it means when we are doing music in Zoom, we need the original sound on, you know, because then it means that it's super focused and concentrated input that it's getting, making the quality really amazing. However, if you for some reason happen to give a music lesson in a super busy office, which I wouldn't recommend, but if for whatever case you are in a setting, for example, children running around and it's just very loud, that's going to be actually a little bit of a struggle because then it's also going to get everything else into it. However, teaching music in a quiet environment would need the original sound on in order for us to have a better quality. That's step number one, yeah? So we go to the settings, audio setting, and we turn on original sound on. When you enable that, you see that you can kind of switch, turn it on and turn it off in the upper left corner. That's step number one. Now, we continue under this thing where it says high fidelity music mode, echo cancellation, and stereo audio. All of these three sections. Is everybody able to see this? It's right under that. Yeah? We want to enable all of these as well. Yeah? We want to have this turned on as well. Why is that? So, when you go to Zoom, most of these things have a question mark behind it. And next to the high fidelity music mode, for example, it says it optimizes Zoom audio for highest quality music. It can increase CPU, etc. pp. You know, echo cancellation, prevent echoes from being captured. Stereo audio, this enables Zoom to encode audio into stereo. So if you don't really know what these things are, it's explained. Why do we need it as a very short input? It's just echo cancellation, meaning if I wouldn't have turned this on, you would basically hear yourself and myself constantly in an echo, which is super annoying, and we don't want to have that. The other stuff is simply just to make it even better, and even better audio quality. So I wouldn't actually go too nerdy on what these different things mean, but just have it as a checklist, you know. Go to Zoom, turn on original sound, and then enable all of these three following bars. Right? Again, it's all listed in a handsheet that everybody would be getting afterwards as well, so that you can also just practice it yourself. Yeah. Now, very important. We are still in the setting mode, and if you go a little bit further up where it says microphone, under the microphone there is this other little area where it says automatically adjust microphone volume. Is everybody able to see that? How about you, Bea? You were automatisch Mikrofon. You have it in German. Is that possible?
Lautstärke automatisch einstellen.
Genau. Yeah? All good. So in German it says Lautstärke automatisch einstellen. Do not enable that. So by default, it's already enabled, and it's supposed to be a nice idea just in case when things are not controlled, in a not controlled loudness volume environment. However, for the sake of keeping a very good quality of of teaching versus singing or whatever instrument you're playing that needs to go through the microphone, whether it is this microphone or in the computer, it's going to make it very messy. And sometimes you maybe have had the experience in Zoom that, you know, when you listen back to a recorded lesson, that sometimes you were in and out and it kind of just didn't sound great. So whereas everything else needed to be checked, this one you need to uncheck, you know. So Zoom in the beginning has different default settings, and that's one of them. We do not want to have this enabled. However, if you are plugged in with a microphone that goes through an interface, be aware that you cannot automatically adjust your volume. What do I mean by that? Now that we have disabled this function, it basically means that you will be able to yourself to control the input gain of your microphone. If you have a certain microphone that just goes into the computer, you can manually adjust it in Zoom or sometimes on the microphone. When you're plugged into an interface, Zoom won't let you change this bar of volume. That's normal because, you know, the idea with an interface is that you could basically adjust the volume on the interface itself. We will talking about interface in a second, so don't get, you know, stressed out about if you're not using an interface yet. But just that you know, don't get confused if this all of a sudden you can't adjust it yourself. So, exactly. Now we come to setting up a microphone. If you are in the same section that we're still in the audio section, you open the audio settings, you have enabled and disabled everything we just talked about. Then you have the two areas that says microphone and speaker. Now, depending on what you're using, you will go to the one long bar next to the one that says test microphone, and there it should be either put on a built-in microphone or same as system or Soundflower, whatever it's showing you up. It's basically you can choose between whatever input options you have, right? So, meaning if you are connected to an interface where you put the microphone into the interface, this will be the interface name that you have to choose. You know, for some of you, that's already, you know that, but I think maybe for some others, it's a little bit like confusing sometimes which name you want to use. If you're only using your computer microphone, it's called the built-in microphone. Yeah. If you're using an USB microphone, let's say the microphone is called Apple 5.7, then it will be shown as an Apple 5.7 within this option bar. Yeah. So most of the time, you just really need to make sure what your devices are called in order to find the devices within the option. Yeah. So it's actually pretty easy of just trying to set up whatever device you're using. If you're using more than one microphone, it's always recommended to maybe really think about the interface, because that way you're choosing one device, but with more input from, you know, whether it's microphone that is for the voice, the other microphone might be if you play the guitar or whatever else you want to be broadcasting in your Zoom live setting. Okay, so yeah, basically that's kind of about it with the whole audio quality. I will go to the video quality in a second, but what I would recommend, just a little tip for yourself, I updated my Zoom account as well now so that I can just fully use it without having any restrictions. Yeah, so set up meetings or also just teach for hours if that's what I'm planning to do. What I usually do when I have to give a meeting or a workshop in Zoom, I just try to record myself before that. You know, like kind of like making a sound check. Why is that important? You will not experience yourself, whether it is the video quality or the quality of your voice, if you haven't heard back to what Zoom is doing. And this is something that I kind of just recently learned while creating more and more video content. Zoom is showing you in a very nice way when you're doing both video quality as well as microphone quality checks. If you're recording, it kind of sounds pretty bad in comparison to what you thought it would be, you know, and these things will be enhanced now when we talk about the video quality setting as well. Just be aware that everything we're putting into Zoom is a lot of information. So the idea of investing in certain quality settings, like a better, microphone or a better web camera or lighting or anything that you think would be enhancing the experience for the student, is good. However, everything that you're doing you can recommend to your students as well. Why do I say this? We sometimes forget that it's not only important for the students to have a good quality of what you are teaching them or how you are presenting yourself, but it's also nicer for you to hear them better, right? So everything that I'm doing right now, just guiding you through the first little steps of what to enable and disable, I would recommend to do with your students as well if you're using Zoom or also if you're using Skype or whatever you're using, right? So just make sure that everything that you're doing, it's nice if the students can do themselves as well. Now, let's move on to the video quality. And again, everything that I'm saying right now, you will have written down from me with a little screenshot of how it looks so that you can just afterwards also forward this to your students if that helps you or anything. Maybe just try and follow along if you understand what I'm saying, or if something is a little bit like, woo, overwhelming, don't freak out about it. It's still, it's kind of like a lot sometimes in the world of teaching. But that being said, we move on to video quality. Now, the idea of going to the video quality setting. Oh, maybe just one more thing, sorry, before I move on. In the settings, where the microphone setting is, this is kind of your input for the microphone or whatever you're using. Make sure to also be aware where you want to hear your students, right? So once the students are set up in the right way, you will have to decide whether you would like to work with headphones, or if you are actually connected to speakers, you would also have to choose that within the section where it says speaker, right? It's the same idea. At home, for example, I'm connecting my speakers to my interface, and my interface is also taking my microphone. So it's kind of just like the middle point of everything. So my setup at home would be test speaker is, or the speaker I'm using is called, let's say it's a Focusrite. And my microphone input is also Focusrite, just because it's I'm just using my interface for everything. If you're using your headphones, make sure that it's called built-in output, yeah, or built-in output. In the brackets, it says internal speakers. Yeah, but just a little side note on that. Now let's jump to the videos. We are basically now we're in the setting mode, anyways. In case you have to do it step by step as well. You would basically go right next to the video signal, press on the little thing like right next to mute. There's also the same sign right next to the video camera, and the same settings would be opening. And now above the audio sign, there is the video sign for settings. Is everybody able to see the video sign? Perfect. And then you open and enable the video setting. Now, so by default, Zoom is kind of smashing the video quality down. That's kind of what I referred to before. Right now, I see myself with a pretty perfect setup. Great. Every time I recorded myself, I was surprised that the video quality looked actually pretty bad. And I was like, okay, what is all of that about? We're talking about lighting. We're talking about, what camera we're using. For example, just that you know the difference between my camera that I am using on my computer as opposed to a webcam that I started to invest in. Let me just show you right now the difference between that. So this is my FaceTime camera. You can see it's already changing. And if I'm turning down the light, for example, that I'm using here, if I just turn this off, that's basically my normal setting without anything. Right? Pretty bad. Happens sometimes, but which was not actually my thing. It was just a nice little side effect because one of the daughters of my partner has this like lighting ring that they use for all the Instagram stuff and whatever they're using the lights for. It's actually recommended as well for online teaching. It just gives you a controlled setting within the light, which helps. In settings where it's pretty dark like it used to be with mine. You can adjust the light. Now it's way too light. I can go a little bit down. I can change the setting. And it's kind of nice to just find the right lighting so that it's, if you record your lessons, it just looks better. Or if you're just creating content for online content, it also just looks a little bit better. It makes a difference. Now, I'm still using my camera for my computer right now. I invested in a webcam. And I try to find a good middle way in between. So this is the webcam Logi that is called Pro Stream Webcam C922, and it's basically I tried to find something that was not too expensive but also not too bad, basically. So this one costs $70. There are also ones that can go all the way up to 200, and also ones that are way cheaper. I don't want to say that this is a necessary tool. I just say it might be helpful, or just making your whole setup better. Once you start investing in good audio setup because you want to teach online, it's recommended. But once the COVID hit, we were not all having all the money just to like get a super amazing studio quality. I was teaching in a kind of the worst setting ever, and it worked. You know, it was not optimal. It wasn't like what I would do now, but it all still works as long as you are able to have a good audio quality. So what I would definitely say, one of the most important things is invest in the right audio setting. Now, coming back to the video setting, you would have to go to the video setting, open it up, and then by default, it should have had like original ratio on or nothing. Like, you know, we don't have to click too many things in this specific setting, but the only thing that needs to be enabled is the one that says HD. Does everybody see HD? Perfect. This is basically something that's going to be important for you to just check. You do not need the one that says touch up my appearance, because what does that do? It basically just changes the, you know, the skin quality of your face. It makes it more smooth, you know, like in some of these new phones you have like the beauty filter or whatever they call, which kind of makes everything very doll-like, you know. Whether that's, if you like this, okay, there's the chance to do that, but most of the time everything you're doing additionally within Zoom is more work, you know. So the less of extra features you're doing, the better everything is going to be. And I think in the setting of what we are doing, we do not need to look like a doll or be, you know, more artificial than what online already is. So try to be as natural as possible and just leave all these extra features out. You know, it's gonna enhance your video quality immensely. So the only thing that you need to enable is HD, right? There's another little thing to say. There's the one that says adjust for low light. Adjust for low light is not a bad thing to do. You know, it's basically something that if anything is like too light or too dark, it's going to help you make it lighter. However, sometimes it's also just making it over bright. So it's not always necessarily a better thing. It's just a computer that is kind of automatically trying to do stuff that whoever invented these features thought could be helpful. Again, it might be better to just consider a cheap light that you can get at any store for definitely under $10, of just adjusting the light setting and do it so that you are happy for yourself. So this is basically all that will be covered with regards to video and audio setting. What we will have to talk about
Just
now
a second
is,
with
yes,
the lights. I wear my reading glasses, and a friend of mine said it's terrible if your glasses reflect the light. So whoever wears
Totally.
glasses should always check whether the light is reflected in the glasses or not.
Very, very good point. I'm normally also wearing glasses, but right now when I'm in front of the screen, I actually decide for the same reason not to do it. It's placed right in front of me right now. There are certain setups that I have seen where they're investing in like tiny lights and kind of positioning it in different corners as well, to just see like what happens if the light comes more from here or from here. The straight up front is going to make it reflect, and that's annoying, and that's super true, right? So again, there you can make the test yourself if you go to Zoom and just like see yourself and just check if you think it's reflecting, or try to find the right angle so that this is not happening. But a very good point. That is a little bit of a problem for us who are wearing glasses. Anyways, there are a lot of different tips and tricks that I will be telling you after that are really focused on my experience while teaching. But since I know that some of you will have to leave a little bit earlier, I would like to maybe just briefly open up the discussion or also questions for your setup at home. Like if you are teaching online, first of all, how you think you're gonna, you know, what are you using? What are your goals? What are your setups? To just see if you know, there are any questions that you have with regards to that, as well as maybe someone is having all the tools at home and hasn't connected it yet. Now's the time to maybe just give you the space to ask anything that you want to ask with regards to audio or video general setting questions. Yes, Alexander.
Yeah,
Hey, Alex.
hello, Mia. By the way, we are colleagues. We didn't meet yet. I'm a piano
Oh.
teacher at the Orchestenberg Music School. Yeah, we're
Hi.
such a big school that we don't know each other.
That's funny. That's the other online music school.
Yeah.
Hi, nice to meet
Hi,
you.
nice to meet you. And thank you for doing that workshop because you're also representing our school in a very good
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
Everything is.
My question is, you can see it. There's always too much light on my face. I look a little bit like Jesus, which I don't want to do. So what would you recommend if there's too much light? How can
Too
I?
much light.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm so white in my face all the time.
It's right on your face. So basically, are you sitting right in front of a window?
Ah, but I can change this and
Exactly. Can you change like just 45, like the half of it, like stop, for example, right there? This is already a tiny bit better. The thing is, like, what I would recommend. I don't know if you were there when I talked about.
yes, I there I put a little arrow. I switched it on.
Okay,
It's
yeah, but schwache Beleuchtung. So it's like, no, that's not gonna make it better. I would recommend you, if your room is very light, which generally is nice, you know, but if you have any curtains or anything like that, I would recommend you to make it darker while you're teaching. Let's just see if that's already looks a tiny little bit better.
Does it make a difference still?
And now,
It's the light of my camera, I think. The camera of the laptop. The light of the camera. I
the
think
light
that
of the camera.
It's very strong, I think.
Alexander,
have-
yeah.
Now I
Sorry,
put
yeah.
down blind.
Alexander, I have got the same problem, and I try to make this lighten on a manual way, not on that it is
Okay.
automatically. Try this because it helps. It hits more than automatically.
Okay.
What do you mean by
thank you.
manual? Like having actual lighting set
Yeah,
up?
because
Yeah.
then you have more. But maybe because I think it helps a little bit.
No, it's a good call because sometimes these extra additional lights can just be too much. Like in your setting, you do look a little bit like Jesus. Not that I know how he looked, but it's like an angel. But I can't see your eyes. That's true. I feel like it's getting even worse.
You can
Oh, I
change
do
it from automatically to manual. You see this?
Yeah, I did it, but you see, I just do it now. It doesn't make it better. It changes, but
No,
not,
but it changed some. Yeah, it changed. Und den,
Right.
noch mehr? Kannst du es noch weiter runterdimmen? Ist das
no. This is minimum, and this is
Yeah.
maximum.
Wow. But is there a way to completely turn off the light situation from your camera? Just like
I don't know how to do it.
because but that's on your computer then, right?
Okay, I don't know how to do it, but I don't want to waste too much time on that topic.
But
now.
maybe, I mean, if maybe there's a way that I would be happy if we can connect afterwards or at some point and maybe make a checkup together and see like what you maybe would need in order to. Sometimes it's also just like where you stand, you know, because if lights like here versus if the lights like here versus what happens if you're actually turning around. But maybe we can kind of schedule something where we can check this out together.
With pleasure. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Just one tiny thing.
Yes.
Alexander, did you say that you switched on this schwache Beleuchtung anpassen? Hast du das angeklickt oder nicht? Weil du hast ja keine.
Moment.
Im Zoom.
Ja, habe ich angeklickt, ja.
Mach's mal weg. Weil du hast ja keine schwache Beleuchtung. Du hast
Genau.
sozusagen das.
Jetzt habe ich es weg. Now I switched it off.
Hast immer noch. Ja.
Ja, ist immer
I think it's a problem that there comes too much light out of my computer.
Right. Can be.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
then maybe try. I don't know if you can adjust the lighting of your screen. You know that there's these like different things that you can make very dark and because maybe you're literally getting too much screen light.
Okay. I don't
know
know
what I
how
mean?
to do that, but we can do it another
Yeah.
time.
Let's check it out
Yeah.
together. It might be something like that because sometimes it's just the night modus and the screen setting is sometimes actually nice because it has a little bit of this sepia effect on it. But let's check it out together. It's a good one. Please remind me afterwards that we find a time.
Thank you.
Cool. Cool. Anyone else? Some general questions with regards to how to set up these different things, or questions for recommendations, or anything that is unclear with regards to the different setups of the microphones. You know, like I know that some of you might have like microphones at home as well as like interface. Does everybody know what an interface is in that sense, or a USB microphone? It's good if you say no, because then we definitely need to spend some time on that, right? So what I'm having here, and what Lucas is also using, right? I can see it there. I'm not sure if you're using this one as a normal with an interface or an USB thing, because I know this one also exists in a USB thing.
It's with an interface.
Interface, perfect. So the thing that we are using is we're having a condenser microphone that is, built into like a device, an interface that is basically something that is easy to just plug in from the interface into the computer. It's really just like plug in, plug with an USB ending. For those of you who think that they're either traveling or they're getting a little bit overwhelmed with too much electronics, there are amazing USB microphones at this moment. And, I am thinking about investing in it because I am traveling a lot since I'm like in between these two countries, but I'm also trying to find the best way of traveling with as least as possible. Right now I'm kind of pretty set up with a computer here, but I also have invested in like a Microsoft Surface Pro, which is basically, like a Microsoft computer, but that I can use as a tablet as well. And the idea that I'm having with this is I would like to invest in a USB microphone so that whenever I'm somewhere, whether it is on tour with a band or anything, that I could still give my online lessons, because I will only bring this device, my little camera that is like that big, and a USB microphone that you connect to your computer the way that you will connect anything into the computer. It's really just like turn it on, plug it in, There are amazing microphones on the market at the moment, and from $50 to $300, depending. It's always like the more you invest, of course, there is better quality, but it's not always necessary. In my case, sometimes I would probably invest in something that is between $250, just because I'm also recording a lot. But for the teaching purpose, it can be super enough to just maybe spend between like $70 and $100. Also, what is different on some of the microphone, the USB microphones, is that they have almost like a built-in interface. What does that mean? That means like some of the microphones, you can see they have you can put your headphones to it, which is helpful in order to check your own gain, because right now I was recording myself just to see what my right setting is. I can hear myself in different, setups, but like I'm just trying to find a way, like, how can we teach online without being, technicians in a way? And that was something that was very overwhelming for me a couple of years ago when I've never used too much technology in the first place. It's like a lot of people just want to turn on the computer, go to the Zoom, plug in a microphone, and be ready to go. Yeah. For those cases, I would recommend these USB microphones because they can come in like smaller versions, bigger versions, and your audio would be automatically better. As I said in the beginning, it's the same setup as, just going through all the steps and then not selecting your interface, but then selecting the name of your USB microphone. So I have attached some of the recommended ones also in a link that will be collected in the file that you will get towards the end. But for that is also like what I can recommend for the people who are, up for online shopping. Like Thomann is a...
Hi, Mia.
Hi.
I'm Larnet, and actually I'm having a problem about hearing my students sometimes, because when they are playing, somehow sound doesn't come out.
Right. That is, yeah, for sure. But like, what are they playing? Just different instruments or specific instruments?
When they are talking, I can clearly hear them, but when they start playing, I can't hear them. I teach Larnet.
Right. You would need to make sure that everything that I showed you in the beginning, that they are doing as well. Because a lot of the times, talking is something that Zoom picks up. Yeah. Singing already starts to be more complicated. The moment, make sure that they have the original sound on. It makes a tremendous amount of difference. Make sure that they're like, that they're also checking all of the other check bars that we talked about in the beginning, and you will automatically hear a better quality of everything that they're doing. Original sound on is the most important thing, because the moment you turn this off, it's kind of picking up like different things and adjusting it, and it's just it's just a technology setup that is trying to cancel out whatever this computer thinks is a noise. But music is noise, so they shouldn't cancel anything. Meaning, make sure that everything is like always original sound on. Sometimes that's really the game changer. Yeah, Jan.
Yeah, I
Thank
only
you.
wanted to emphasize that it's true. This makes a tremendous difference because, for example, I play bass, and when we play, I did not use Zoom too much, but sometimes Zoom just thinks bass noise has to be cancelled, but we want to hear that in my
Right.
case. So original sound on, that is the major key point. Everything else is cool, but that is the key point.
Totally.
For me, it was
Yeah.
a game changer.
Totally. Thank you for that. Yes? Islam?
Yes,
Yeah.
is it, yeah. Is it possible to have all these settings on an iPad or
Sure. Yeah. You
or
mean
a
like,
mobile phone?
you mean the settings that we were talking about?
Yeah.
Yes. Zoom is
Okay.
basically super independent, whether it's a Microsoft or an Apple product, or whether it's a computer or your phone. The only thing that can be, like, the phone looks a little bit different, but you just like have to check up the different things, like original sound. You can enable that, you know. So that is possible, and especially when your students are signing in with a phone, it will be essential. Let's put it
Oh
that way.
yes, of course. Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question. It's a very important one. How about the other ones? Do you have experience, questions, or problems that we can share here in the group? Alexander?
Just once again, what is it in German original sound on? How do I find it in the German menu?
I'm pretty sure it says Originalton an. Hast du das da, Jan?
Es ist oben links, das grüne, neben dem grünen Dings da.
Second, I will
But
quickly.
I think you would have to enable this first. So if you go to Audio Settings, unten
Yes.
links bei dem, genau, unten links bei dem Mikrofon. Sorry, I'm just switching to German real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Unten links,
Ja.
genau. Da gehst du zu Audio Settings und dann bei Audio Settings scrollst du quasi runter. Da ist dieses, wo es steht Musik und Professional Audio. Jetzt weiß ich nicht, wie das auf Deutsch da steht, weil ich es auf Englisch habe. Siehst du das?
Nee, ja doch, ja, sehe ich,
Genau,
super.
und direkt da drunter steht, müsste was stehen mit Originalsound
Ja.
anzeigen.
Meeting interne Option zum Einschalten des Originaltons anzeigen.
Genau, unbedingt ankreuzen.
Ah, das ist das auf Deutsch. Okay, super, habe ich gemacht.
Genau. Und jetzt hast du oben links dieses Zeichen, so ein grünes Schild, und daneben steht Originalsound. Und das klickst du an, sodass es Originalsound an oder on oder was dann bei dir steht. Siehst du das oben rechts? Links, sorry.
Nein, das sehe ich jetzt nicht. Muss ich wieder ganz hoch scrollen oder wie?
Nee, also in deinem Hauptmenü. Hast du das angeklickt, dieses Zeige in Meeting-Option?
Habe ich.
Dann müsstest du es eigentlich sehen.
Ganz oben links ist so ein grünes Ding mit Häkchen und daneben hast du Originalton.
Gefunden. I found it. Thank you.
Sehr
Cool.
schön. Genau.
So it's always to be like that when I do, when I teach, as well as I have a Zoom meeting where people just talk.
They have to turn it on and you have to turn it on.
Ah,
That's very important, and that's gonna, like, if they sound a little bit bad, or if they say they can't really hear you well, then do the check and see, like, is my original sound turned on? Most of the time, you know, the thing is, like, if you record in Zoom, for example, or if you plug in or change host or anything, it can sometimes change the original sound setting to off. You know, it happened to me a couple of times that every time I started recording something or I did a screen share or whatever, that the original sound just all of a sudden switched over to turned off for whatever reason. For me, it makes no sense, but just make sure to always check if it's on. You know, it's going to just make everybody's life better. But the idea, I think, for you is, like, I think it's going to be easy for you as teachers to know your setup, but, like, the first part of online teaching is also to guide your students through the very little bit overwhelming first steps of, like, okay, well, what am I doing? What do I need? Because, you know, it's kind of not a lot, but it's just something they just need guidance in the beginning, you know, and it's just like 3 or 4 things to be aware of, you know? Exactly. Very nice. Anyone else specific questions to that or experience that you want to share? Lucas?
Yeah, another question. Did you figure out a way how to use a microphone and your speakers, because you said in your home setting you're using your speakers, without having any feedback problems?
Yeah.
Or delay problems?
Yeah, good question. Actually, the thing with the delay thing was kind of always related to if the echo cancellation is enabled or not. So these four things, like turn original sound on, no other echo cancellation, all of these things are crucial so that it's not gonna be, feedbacky in that sense. You know how to set it up, right? To use this when you are like, exactly. So the game changer was basically just that, to just make sure
Okay.
that these four boxes are checked, you know?
But with the echo cancellation, then you have a problem if you're playing simultaneously, right? Because then it cancels your sound while I am talking.
So here's the question. Playing simultaneously meaning what exactly? Meaning like playing guitar, playing piano, playing e-piano?
Playing piano together with the student.
Okay. Together with this. So like
Yeah.
the in real time
Yeah.
performance.
I mean, it's already difficult via Zoom, so it doesn't happen that much. But I noticed that sometimes I play something and the student want to ask during my playing,
Right.
and then I couldn't hear him because his sound was cancelled.
Right. Well, I think when it's Zoom, I would recommend to just like everyone, like once someone is giving an input, like you are playing something, let the student just know that it would need to wait till you are done, right? Because of the fact that you otherwise wouldn't hear it. There are different platforms where they're trying to dealing with how to kind of do this in live together. Maybe let's just share a quick little thing that is kind of my experience within online teaching is that I have, there are two ways, for example, parallel like playing versus having them just using play-alongs as well, right? So my feeling is like I was trying to figure out, okay, what's the best way for them to have the most out of an online session? And in my case, / in voice lessons, it just used to be the best to have them have a great play along or a great karaoke or anything that makes them have the feeling that are actually making music, because we need to find a way to replace my playing with them, and unless we're using the actual idea of how to play online live. That's a different, that I know that this is also a workshop that that has been covered or people are experimenting with. In my case, so that I can 100% focus on what I get from my students, I just do my play alongs myself. Or what also helps is like have them actually become the host, then share their sound of whatever play along or karaoke that they're using. And then when they're set up with a microphone, it's actually for a really nice balance, so that I don't have this weird thing of just like listening to only the voice but not really the play along, or vice versa. It turns out if you make your student the host and the student is set up with a microphone, that when the moment they share their computer sound and they sing into the microphone, because they're the ones sharing it, the sound quality is perfect, and then you as a teacher, you get the full experience, and vice versa. So meaning if you are showing something parallel to singing and playing, and you would like to have them really like use their play along, but you're singing to them once with a play along, you share your sound, use your setup, make sure to turn the original sound on, and they will actually have a really good recording of you singing on top of a play along, so that's also kind of a new thing that I just discovered in a way. It just needs a microphone to make it a really good balance. I don't know if that answered your question, but it's
it
definitely
did.
a tip. Cool. Jan, du hattest dich gemeldet.
Yeah, I think it's okay. I just wanted to say that I really, when I teach online, I really try to avoid as much as I can really playing together, because it can be a bit annoying. Like it can be very annoying, just not a bit. I really try to say, okay, I'm here, I have my metronome, my play along, and please listen to me while I demonstrate, and then I'm gonna really listen to you while you play. And I always try, we have the same material, I have the play along, they have the play along. Do you have a metronome, please, right beside you? And then it's the big difference is it a kid, or is it, for example, somebody a bit more experienced in digital things? One of my students is super digital and he sounds amazing.
Right.
And others do not. And I try to avoid really interacting. And when we do, I simply play and say, okay, just join me.
Right.
And then we'll and then afterwards I'm going to listen to you, and I always imagine it sounds great.
That's great. Well, maybe also something now that you're saying different age groups. So I'm also teaching like production and songwriting for beginners, intermediates, and in the time where COVID hit everyone, I kind of, you know, not only was teaching online lessons like singing stuff, but actually making, you know, all my students, you know, create their own songs or help them create a play along, but then actually experience what it means to record something at home, simply for the fact that they needed to have the feeling of creation, of creating something, especially when it's not a creation in the live moment, right? When it's not interacting with me playing or us singing harmonies. Why do I say this? Zoom is a perfect platform to actually also online produce in time. So whenever I was, for example, producing with, you know, songs or, you know, getting their demo tracks ready, I now via Zoom have the chance to actually share this process with the original sound live, which is really exciting for the students when they are like, you know, overwhelmed with what to do. Then I can maybe, you know, we can produce together. It's a production tool and it's also a different kind of workshop topic. But why do I say this? For vocalists who are maybe not necessarily playing for themselves, like I'm talking about the students here, it's actually really nice to work on something at home and have something afterwards that they can show. At this point, I also noticed every time my students actually got a track finished, their motivation level went really high up. And all of a sudden, the idea of online teaching didn't become like so heavy, because a lot of people and a lot of students are missing the, you know, interactive part with each other, which we all understand because it's something you can't replace. However, you can replace the way of how you want to work on your songs. I started to work, you know, to really like have them, you know, have a play along that they can work with, but also on Apple products, you always have GarageBand. Everyone gets GarageBand for free. Ableton has a light and a free version. There are a bunch of different other production tools where it's very easy to kind of just play around with what it means to record yourself in times of, you know, digital music making. And you don't have to be professional for that. But just the fact of giving them homeworks, for example, about like now sing this second melody or this third melody on top while they're sharing their sound, it's actually surprising how good it works. And I was positively surprised of how this actually changed their experience within online voice lessons. Yeah, because I think also voice, like every other music part, but like especially using the voice, the students are it's a very personal thing, and very often like just by not being able to actually do the singing together and harmony together, and there's all this like the typical singer emotionality that kind of falls away. And how do you replace that? You replace that by kind of giving them all the tools that they need to actually feel that they're really able to do music whenever they want. Sometimes it's just like also on the phone. Like I think, and this is why I say this, Jan, he mentioned the different age groups. I think it's very important to talk about that because it is a difference, right? There is a difference between whether you have to teach kids that are like up until 10 or 12, or whether you're teaching teenagers and grown-ups that are maybe easier to kind of mumble around with a more dry setup of digital environments. But the reality is that I think most of us probably have experienced both sides. I have to say, I thought it was personally harder to teach kids simply for the fact that it's not only about singing, but it's also they really need the interaction with us. However, it's also possible, especially in the time where it become like play-alongs, karaoke, writing your own songs, maybe be there with your, you know, family. I have a bunch of students where I happen to teach both their parents as well as their kids. And I just start to really give them task of like, they all work on their own song, but I also make them sing together, you know, even if they maybe not always think that I don't want to, but then all of a sudden I find families actually playing together and realizing that this really made the online teaching thing something that they barely notice because they have the experience of making music together, you know. It also means that sometimes, you will also experience that kids can get very frustrated or very motivated. It can change within seconds. Personally, I am not really teaching younger children for the reason of all the things that I'm covering right now are just by default people who are like a little bit older. I'm not saying no to that, but I have huge respect for the idea of teaching young kids online, because I think I don't know if you have experience in that, but I just think it can be more complicated. Again, make it as playful as possible. So right now I'm talking with grown-ups, so I'm not like changing the way I'm talking. But if I would have to talk with kids, it just takes 3 times more effort from the side of a teacher. Makes it more important to have them guide through the settings, have them play around with karaoke's, have them share their favorite songs, have them record at home, and be really like, be childish in a time where it's just really children unfriendly. You know what I mean? But that's, again, like, it's almost going out of the idea of teaching voice online. It's just a very pedagogical challenge that I think we all had to face at some point. But it's a good point with the with the age groups. Thanks for mentioning. I don't know if you have experience in that. If you have you're teaching different age groups, right, Jan? Yeah, you have all ages there. How was that for you?
Well, it's not all ages is not correct, because it's really not the very, very tiny kids. That's not it, because electric bass is not the typical instrument for tiny kids. By the way, do you understand me? I switched around with my music. Is it crackling or is
You're
it
very
okay?
quiet, but I think if we all focus, then
okay, then we
it's
just
okay. If you come a little closer, maybe it's better.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, yeah, I don't want to be. I don't want to talk too much, but I think as you mentioned, when the kids are younger teenagers, they need a bit more guidance, and they need a bit more interaction. That is true. One fact I notice is that they are also a bit more stubborn. When they, for example, if something is not working, they always, as in school, they search the guilt on your point. Well, it's not. When I do it, everything is working. When you do it, it's not working. And so that is okay. Can we maybe try to switch something? And there is a point when I simply give up adjusting their setups, when I just say, okay, let's get it done now. And I always switch on my imagination and say, when you play, I always imagine it sounds good. I know you personally when we're in one room, but I switch on okay, I remember you sounding good when you play electric bass. And that's what I do. I simply imagine it sounds great. Right. It's not super perfect, but I do it. And the more people are a bit more reflected, then you can really say, okay, I did not understand you. I could not hear you. The same way when you right now tell me I simply did not get it because my microphone is not working, then I'm not angry. I will have to try to adjust it because something is going on in my setup in the last weeks. I don't know what. But
it's cool.
Yeah,
it's a super important thing to really
stubborn sometimes.
Yeah. For sure. I would have to say that it's also voice is probably one of the easiest to do online. Everything, I think bass is starting to be a harder area. Piano is in between, I mean, not that I know what the bass setting is, but like I just have, this is the thing, like I am, we're speaking, but also when I'm having a good microphone, I'm also singing. But let's maybe talk about what happens when we have to stand up, because like if we're doing like, classes, a lot of my students now, sadly, and I'm like it really bugs me, but a lot of my students are actually coming with breathing problems because of the whole mask wearing. After 2 years, despite the fact that it's important to protect everyone, we are noticing that there are just some things that are, harder. So I have noticed this myself before I'm going to a concert. I'm starting to take the car for the sake of that. I know that the mask is also making it a little bit harder for me to breathe, right? Now, the other day I had a student, she's a teacher in a secondary school, and she came and she said, like, I feel very like problem breathing today, right? So then all of a sudden the whole thing of just sitting down versus standing up, which is actually something we have to do in voice, becomes like a little bit of a challenge, because all of a sudden, it changes for the sound quality is not like this right now, because now I'm doing this and this, I'm going back and I'm trying to show them different things. So what are you doing when you're a voice teacher and you actually are trying to like be very physical, right? Because I think everybody has noticed that, you know, online teaching became a lot of sitting, and sitting for guitar, I think is good, or for piano is good, but for voice, it's like, I really have to make sure that they know, stand up, move, that it becomes like, oh yeah, we're not just starting to be couch potatoes, right? But what do we do with the whole changing of the microphone? There is a recommendation that you do not change this specific microphone right now too much, because it's gonna like make it noisy, maybe it's gonna pop, it's gonna be uncomfortable. The idea of actually using 2 different microphones within a setting is recommended. Now, I have tried to just like, you know, there are these small microphones that you can clip on that, for example, yoga teachers are doing, or the people who are like, you know, have, you know, people who are doing on television, who are like, you know, moving around and speaking without having to hold the microphone, or even the headsets. You know, some gamers are using that, but also like if you're, for example, on a stage and you were doing musical things, you know, like this is something to be considered. There are the ones that you can also just plug and go. They're called USB microphones, but you can experiment with different microphone settings and just change it while you're using Zoom. So now if I'm like gonna move and I have another microphone somewhere else in the back that I would like to use when I'm standing up, I can completely just go to my settings down in the left corner and just change my microphone output to, microphone input to the one microphone that I will switch to. It's not going to affect anything in Zoom. It's just going to make you use different input devices. My feeling like is if you invest in a microphone that is a clip-on, do not go with the cheap ones. There are other microphones like this. If they're only standing on a table and it's in front of your face the whole time, you might not have to go all the way up into the expensive ones. But once you're moving, and once this thing is like gonna be like touching your clothes, and maybe some hair is gonna be, or whatever, cable, salad, and everything that you will have to deal with, try to go for the ones that are better. I did try a cheap one, a $30, that I was kind of, you know, just trying to see if it's gonna make anything better. And my experience was that the sound, well, it was messy. It was really messy. It was really hard to find the right balance between, you know, the movement versus what happens if the cable moves, and it was very noisy as well. But there I also saw different different price ranges, again, where if you want to invest in something and be very flexible, I would actually try and go for the ones that the yoga teachers or the sports instructors are going, because they're moving all the time, right? So they're really like doing everything that we might do like a third of it, but you know, try to see the different versions that this online world has shown now. So this is a very typical studio setup, but you know, what if you're traveling, and what if you're actually teaching a lot of people and you're a choir instructor and you have to really, you know, be even more active so that everybody is having fun while sitting in front of a screen? Then you might consider either a headset or something that you can clip on. That could be another device that you can use, right? Again, it's also not a problem to just adjust your stand. I'm just saying there are ways and ways, and I wouldn't say that anything is the better way. I just think you need to figure out what you would need in your class setting, right? So if you're using guitar as something that is your instrument to play with them, for example, I would recommend to just also use a tiny microphone on your guitar that you will plug into a device, like into your Focusrite, into your interface, so that you just have, you know, the most quality microphone inputs of possible. However, what I've also experienced is that, especially when the focus is on voice, most of the time everything that happens right along to it, it's fine if it's not like 100%. It just needs to support you as the voice teacher. If I would be teaching piano, it's something else, right? Yeah, I think like, I thought someone was having a question. Now, yeah, I think, is everybody following me right now? I was just vamping on this little tiny microphone idea. So, yeah, again, there are not the perfect setup. There's only the perfect setup for you. And I think like one thing that's important maybe to mention is I have experimenting a little bit with if you're using an e-piano, and you know, what's the better way to do in order to use an e-piano setting in Zoom. So this is just like now picking up from this microphone. You know, it's just a normal e-piano that you then hear through that, right? You can make it louder, softer, whatever you feel like. However, you can also, since it's an instrument, an electronic instrument, you can technically connect this piano with an interface and send the audio signal through to Zoom. Now, what I have experienced in my travel setup, for example, is that my students hear my piano sound. I also hear the piano sound parallel when I record something. I just don't hear it when I'm actually playing it, because the only thing it does is sending the audio information into it, and it's going to be stored in the Zoom setup. So if you would want to do that, you would need some sort of extra step in order to also hear yourself back, right? Another option is that you can use, for example, Ableton or Logic or anything where you can use a built-in instrument in these DAWs, and actually plug your MIDI keyboard into that and actually have this this device like connected to Zoom, so that Zoom is picking up the MIDI information. That can be important or interesting the moment you are creating content or recording videos that they will have to listen back to. Yeah, maybe Jan has something to add on that.
Well, not because I just wanted to say, because it's something I know from myself, you're getting very detailed into very, very technical inside the box connections. Maybe this is a bit too much, because we're coming so much into it's really it's super
no, it's good that you say that.
We're very detailed, because, for example, I also experienced something like that. If you want to share Logic sound through Zoom, it works. If you want to share Cubase sound, it does not work, because you need ASIO drivers. So it's so different. Which connection do you have? And I think there's one basic thing: be open to very, very different setups, and be open to solving problems. Because, for example, I thought I'm very good equipped, and I am, and suddenly problems appear. And so,
but it's a really good point. It's really good that you say this, and thank you for this, because the idea is also, and that's the other part, like, what happens if all of this beautiful, complicated setup all of a sudden falls down because the internet connection breaks, or a cable is not happening, or all of these things that can go along with the problems of online teaching. The idea of having a backup is important. But again, it's also okay to realize we're all online, so things are gonna happen. Something is gonna happen. Someone's internet connection is gonna be weird, and the actual challenge of online teaching is to still make it a very efficient lesson, even though it might be not the optimal setting. So I would maybe like to use this time right now to maybe also ask you what your experience has been, or as well as the problems that have come up, and see if there are some ways that we can go around that. Because as Jan said, everything that I can go nerdy and detailed about is very specific. And the reality is that things are changing. And the reality is also that sometimes a lot of people are online, and for some bizarre reason, all of a sudden there is something that doesn't work. It's only technology. So try to be as human as possible, but also know that things can come up. Right? But I would maybe like to talk a little bit about your experiences or problems that you have been facing. I don't know, for example, if you would like to share some of the challenges that you have been facing, and then I would also, hope that I can give you some tips or experiences of all my failings, because even though I'm giving the workshop now on how to teach online, it's like all of the information I'm coming up with is coming from all the frustrations of like, why doesn't it work? And then, going through all the things and checking the links that I'm also attaching in the file that you will get afterwards. Because, most of the time it's just a tiny little switch. But yeah, maybe, I don't know, Lucas, you seem to also be pretty set up. Maybe you want to share a little bit of what you are doing and the challenges, and yeah, I'd be curious.
Yeah, I was teaching piano for a bit of time online, and one of the major challenges, I would say, is the audio quality from the students. Because with piano, you have the problem, even if you have an electric piano and an interface, you still need then a microphone so we can talk. So yeah, already two devices
right.
You need to have, and then if you have students like below the age of 12, that's something you can't be sure that they have like electric pianos, microphones and interfaces. So I had to go with really low quality of sound and the imagination, like Jan said before. Like, okay, I know how it should sound if we were in one room. And also for me, there was struggle. I also had like university lessons via Zoom, and that was really a whole nother story because I had a professional teacher, and I had my setup as well. And there was only like things, if you have your piano and your microphone connected to an interface, it works perfectly fine. But if you then try to play to a playback that comes from your computer, it's already a struggle to get that loop back. So sometimes it was even easier to take another device like your mobile phone and play the playback from the mobile phone also into the interface.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, that was so the main struggles for me, I think. One point I was wondering before is maybe a nice tip is I don't know what the problem was, but like a few minutes ago, I thought that it's good to have your headphones also via your interface, so you can listen back the piano you're playing.
For sure.
So you have your direct monitoring, so you don't need that solves the problem that if you're playing with the piano to the interface, that you don't hear yourself while you're playing.
Right. That is one part, but like it actually didn't work, which is still something I'm trying to figure out why.
Okay.
You know, because normally that's what I tried the same, but it's for some reason it doesn't, and I'm sure it's gonna be. Yeah, I was still trying to figure out what the problem is there, because like if I connected it to this and I just played it for my students could hear it. You know, so they could hear it. That being said, if you're like really comfortable playing and you know what what you're playing and you just have to create something for them. Sure, but it's weird to play music and not hear music, so that kind of doesn't make sense. Yeah. It's the thing that you mentioned is something that I used a lot in the beginning. So for all of you who are kind of trying to make it a little bit easier, maybe because the students are young, or also some of the parents are just not really like into the whole Zoom stuff. Like I had a lot of my students connect their play-alongs to like a portable speaker situation, because turns out almost every household for some reason has something to kind of play their music on, whether it is speakers or whether it is these portable speakers. And I just had them have this right next to them. Why did I do this? Because like the moment I didn't go so professional like with the whole studio setting, you know, it was still the idea for them to have the best play along experience, you know, and at the same time for me to also have the relation between the play along as well as the voice that they're using. And most of the time, like 90% of my students had no microphone, using the built-in microphone for the computer, but everybody had a portable speaker. So that was nice. So I just had, you know, created play along. So I had them go to YouTube and find their karaoke or whatever they, you know, felt comfortable singing along to. Having this connected over a portable speaker, finding the right positioning of the portable speaker, and then that actually worked pretty nice, you know. Now, sometimes there was the problem with this like in and out of the voice quality as well. That again, original sound always has to be on. You know, it's amazing what this button is changing, yeah? So for those of you who don't want to go too crazy because you know that your students might actually be overwhelmed, you can go very simple and just say, do you have a portable speaker with you? Connect to that via Bluetooth and just have them sing along to that, you know? Yeah, with the piano, I feel that I like the idea of voice and piano being picked up with one microphone, unless I don't teach piano lessons so much. I had like one student for a while where I was doing that as well, but like if it's just for me to showing them certain things or have them or record something for them, I actually like the little bit more live version of it. And if you're actually playing with a real piano, for example, even better. It's almost more like a room recording, you know? it's all not a better or worse thing. It's just like what also feels comfortable for you, right? And most of the time, you know, again, we are in a setting where we're in the bedroom, or we maybe don't even have any instruments. So how do we still get our lessons done? That's a big question. Yeah. I had a couple of things that I wanted to. Couple of things. It's not a lot. So again, please interrupt me if there are questions that you have. With everything, we're kind of jumping a little bit back and forth, but that's totally cool. One thing that I would like to recommend for any lessons, especially for voice lessons, have them record the lesson. If it's not on Zoom, but because you are using a different device and you can record it, have them record it on their phones. Now, if we use Zoom, and that's again another one why I recommend Zoom, for example, instead of all the other ones, is if you record in Zoom, you get both the video quality, like a video of the session, but Zoom also can extract it into an MP3 only, right? That means that if you, for example, say, you know, you want to record the first 20 minutes, because the first 20 minutes is going to be warm-up, and you will basically want them to have like a warm-up track so that they can practice at home. This is a perfect thing. So the only thing that you can be aware of is like if you want them to have this recording and you don't necessarily need to store it because you are having so many students and it's just way too much input, you make your student the host, yeah, and then you have your student record the lesson. Because what happens is the moment your student is the one who is recording and the one who is enabled as a host, this student will, after you finish the Zoom lesson, will get the notification, store this material on your computer. And that way you will have the student have directly like convert everything and you will store it on your computer and it can kind of just click on the MP3 and do the lesson over and over again. At the same time, it's also very helpful to have it as a video because a lot of the times I need to make them aware that they're not opening their mouth. A lot of students, especially also when, and I've noticed, for example, with, German language is like, or also English language, if you're not an American that is speaking like super extreme, it's like very closed in a way, right? So the idea of using an open mouth and singing is not always it doesn't feel natural. So, and every time I'm trying to tell them that, it's like they think they're already super open with their mouth. But once they look back to the lesson and realize every time I'm telling them, open the mouth, open the mouth, then they actually realize, oh yeah, right, I can see it now. So the idea that they have the chance to go back and reanalyze their lessons when they're really into, improving has been a game changer and really helpful for them to understand everything that that I was teaching them in this specific lesson. Because like now we have 2 hours of talking of all of this stuff. You will be very happy afterwards to listen back to that, to scroll back, to like make marks when when things were important for you, and or even cut your audio to something that makes sense. So that's a good tool here in Zoom. The other part I would like to share, I don't know if you guys have heard about the breakout rooms. Do you know what that is? Yeah? Anybody who doesn't know what that is? Okay. Then I don't have to actually talk about this. The only thing I think is like, it's just, for example, if you have choir or if you have more than one person, I was giving different lessons also in different areas, but with a lot of people. This breakout room setting was amazing because that way you can just, really work properly. No problem, Jan. Thank you for joining. And yeah, that's one thing that I also wanted to recommend. So tips that I also had, I don't know if you're all having access to an advanced Zoom setting. I don't know. What do you guys use when you're teaching online? Or have you tried different settings so far? Or I would be curious what everybody is using when it's not, Zoom.
Well, I'm a teacher, and in Berlin you have to use Big Blue Button. And I have problems sharing sound, for example, with Big Blue Button. In Zoom, it's no problem, but in Big Blue Button, it's like...
It's pretty bad.
I don't find it.
Yeah, totally. I use this.
I can share videos, yes, but not just sound.
Right. And why do you have to use that? It's just because it's given from the government, or because...
Yeah, it's like for personal rights and all these
Right.
protection of the individual rights and whatever. So we need a server in Germany and this and that. And so the city of Berlin provides that and says it's legal to use this and it's not legal to use Discord or Zoom or anything else.
Makes it hard. I have had the same experience. I did not like it at all. I liked the idea of it, but it just didn't work properly. I just had no good experience with them. What about the other ones? Which one are you using when you had to teach online?
Skype.
Skype? What was your experience in Skype?
I'm still using because I couldn't have solved this problem about having sound from my students, and I've never had this problem on Skype. That's why I'm still using it.
Well, and in Skype, you can also record the lessons. You maybe have tried that, right? The only thing with Skype is you don't have the extracted MP3 version coming out. And the other part is also it's only stored there for 30 days. So it's always like remind them to download the file and everything. I used Skype a lot in the beginning. A lot. Because it was free. And, you know, I have to say, like, I also understand that not everybody wants to upgrade to a paid version of Zoom. But if you know that most of your time will be online teaching, Zoom is just better than Skype. If you know it's once in a while, you can totally use Skype. Just make sure that, you know, think about a camera setting and think about microphone. You can set it up in Zoom the same way. You know, it's not, it doesn't have the small little detail thing with the lightings and everything. It's less advanced than Zoom, but you can for sure do these things. I am not sure about sharing the sound, how this actually worked in Skype. What I know is that I upgraded my home setting to a Microsoft device as well. So I'm using Apple right now, but this one is Microsoft. And I didn't know that actually, but by just having this Microsoft 11, all of a sudden I had access to recording in Skype or sharing sound the way that I'm doing in Zoom. Which I didn't know. But again, that's a question. Not everybody is using a Microsoft device. Meaning, if you're using one of the modern versions of that, you will also be able to use the features within Skype. Again, the question is like, how much are you gonna work in the online world, right? And I think the idea of today's workshop is definitely also like to make this a thing that we can all, use and actually be more motivated and inspired rather than scared of. Because the reality is, even though we don't know how long the pandemic is going to be like, even after pandemic, there might be a couple of people who would like to stay online. I have experienced that. A lot of my students are, I don't know, maybe we can talk about your experience, but a lot of my students improved immensely because they were not having to go to another appointment, which voice or music doesn't have to feel like an extra stress thing, but them actually being in their home setting and made a difference that made them explode. Again, depends on the age groups. Like my youngest was kind of like 15 and the oldest were like 65 or something, so it was like I was having the other end of students. The younger it gets, the harder it got. But like a lot of my students, especially when they're doing Abitur and they have a lot of extra stress, and Berlin is a big city, so it's it's a lot of travel time that we do. They improved immensely, and that's why they actually asked to stay online as long as it's possible / legal to choose between those two options. I don't know what your experience is.
Well, I would like to say, we had to do it when we had the COVID situation, and lots of people experienced it as a shock, like all of a sudden I have to do it and all that. And so in this Musiandra project, we are trying to make it like an international thing. We make music together across the borders, so it's like some more positive connection. So I think so far we have tried four-hand piano via Jamulus. So
Nice.
This is something that we're still exploring. So it's not flawless, but there are opportunities that we have not seen in, let's say, 2019.
Exactly. The other idea is also like, don't forget that if you're doing online lessons, you have the chance to everything that you're recording. You have the chance to make passive income if you would really go really further into that. If you're like, not only teaching, but also into like, actually specific methods that you're teaching, right? Because we are all coming from different areas, from different trainers, for different, backgrounds. But like, if you all of a sudden would like to really go deep into like the perfect warm up, and you would like to upload it to your homepage or anything, you all of a sudden have the access to do this without having a big film crew around you. Like, if you really think about who is posting what online and who's making online music a thing, it's I would always, if you have a good workshop opportunity or a lesson where you realize now it's really, going to be valuable, have it recorded also for yourself to be able to promote yourself. Because if you are traveling and all of a sudden someone signs up, it's and you would like to give an online lesson, and because they saw something on somewhere else, why not? Again, it depends on what your form of teaching should be like. I know that for some people who are in Berlin, it's like they like to actually do it in person. For someone like me who's in between two countries, it's really helpful that I can actually adjust my crazy life by being both present and online. I'm giving an online workshop in songwriting as well, as I mentioned, which is completely based on online on the online lesson. And but then we're, for example, also meeting once to rehearse the songs that we have been working on. But like, what I'm trying to say is, like, try to figure out what makes you feel the most flexible with everything. Whether it is, I'm in Berlin, let's meet with my students. I'm traveling, I can still give you lessons, but have the right setup so that you feel like not limited by it. I think that's the most important thing, and the reason why it's so great that you are organizing these workshops is like, the biggest challenge within the online world is really just like to get used to something new. But guess what? We human beings are very, very simple in that way. We just need to like get the shock and then like survival mechanism, and all of a sudden like we've been doing this for over 2 years and realize like, oh, okay, I'm kind of like starting to get used to that. This is also part of how I can earn my living, which actually is amazing. And it's also empowering to expand the horizon a little bit, because what I've noticed with the online teaching is that a lot of like people in my age, they really benefit from that. But then there are a lot of people like that are in a different generation who felt very isolated because of that, because maybe they didn't even have a laptop. Maybe they were just really scared of anything electronically. It's like trying to teach my grandfather how to use online banking. It's like, why would they all of a sudden be into like getting super nerdy about the online teaching thing? And I think at this point, the more people we are to make everybody aware that it's not only that, but it's also that. That's very important, that we have a way bigger expansion possibility right now, being international, have people connect, live in different countries, feel close, and at the same time take care of, what you want to experience when you're teaching. Because like, you need to be motivated, because if you feel like, I feel limited and frustrated, that's gonna, affect the student's experience as well. As we know, also in life setting, we need to find a way to be really confident and comfortable about what this crisis actually forced us to do. You know what I mean? So, yeah, again, like, maybe I think it's really cool, and I'm really happy that I got the chance to give this workshop, because it's basically something that I know that I'm one of the few that was very happy about the possibility of teaching online. I was teaching a lot in the beginning, and I was very, we were all very shocked and confronted with something that is beyond, right? However, realizing that all age groups are basically now able to do all different kinds of stuff makes me also experience that younger generations are not only like interested in only going to music school, but actually just making music at home. Like, the idea of making music at home became way more important than we actually all think. And I have a lot of my students who were forced to go online, who were then forced to figure things out and like, whoa, being overwhelmed. But then when we did every Monday evening, we had an online songwriting course. We had them produce it out. I showed them how to produce those things live and on, via our screens, and working with different people from different areas and different age groups, just writing about whatever is going on in their lives, having them perform it in front of everyone. And at some point you forget that it's online, and I think that's when you realize, okay, something is working. The moment when you actually start to forget that we are right now still like just communicating through a screen and a lens, then something works, you know. But it's a very delicate mix of just trying to figure out what makes the most sense for you. And I think that's very, very important to always check up on you, like if there are anything that is unclear. Because the other reality is also everything, every question, even if it's the smallest weird setup, like I can't hear myself in this, and like if you Google this stuff, even if it's like you need to just Google your question that you have in my head, can't hear the piano sound through Zoom question, whatever you think, there's always someone who had the same problem. And which is, again, a very good thing in the time of digital online world, that, you know, someone on YouTube was explaining this thing. And we sometimes think that our questions are super dumb. But if you knew what I have been Googling sometimes, or what my YouTube search was, it's ridiculous. Because sometimes it's like, I'm sure nobody has this problem. And then there's this one person over millions of views and looks, like, oh, I noticed that half of you are dealing with the same problem. You're just like, oh, okay, I'm not the only one who's kind of frustrated about these things. So use the online and the internet to just get all your questions asked, because everyone has someone who experienced the same thing. And the other part is also like, you know, you have the chance to, I think, reach out to someone like you know, the Musianra project as well, but also to, you know, me, or to whoever is teaching online, and just don't be shy to ask the questions that you sometimes think are like weird to ask. You know, it's very important to ask all the quote unquote stupid beginner questions, because these are the questions that your students will ask you. So you better know what these questions are, and just better don't judge any of these questions. It can also be like, I can't hear anything. Oh yeah, maybe you need to not, you know, turn your sound on it. And these are small things that make that makes it overwhelming in the first phases of online teaching, right?
Yeah, one thing is like not having the proper technical equipment. So by and by you get a faster computer and an interface and this and that. But on the other hand, I also realized, like when I was teaching, going into a class and having the blackboard and sort of like developing things together in a group makes you teach totally different from if you have the whole internet available. If I tell my students, go on that website and look for this or that and tell me back what you like about this or that, then I start thinking I need to be much more creative using all these opportunities that I have. And then I realize there are so many opportunities. There are too many opportunities.
Yeah.
So I just give up, you know.
That's the other problem, right? All of a sudden, everything is there, and you're just like, "Whoa!" You don't even know what's the right or wrong answer, because there's always someone else's opinion in a way, right? But you know, it's again like what I sometimes do is also give them small tasks that maybe are beyond the vocal task, you know? Because one thing is like practice that, warm up here, and all of these things, but like, you know, find a song, you know, go and listen to music and find a song that you like and present this to the group, like why you like it, have them, you know, what is it about. And I really gave them less like exercises where it's basically my main goal is just to have them go back to what we're coming from, which is listening to music, right? We are in the time where there's way too much access to everything and so much music, and that's great. But people forget how to actually listen to a whole song. And you would, as musicians, we'd be like, oh no, this can't be possible. The whole TikTok world is insane with regards to that. Everything is just 10 seconds at this point. So making, you know, being aware, you know, what the challenges of the time right now is, and you give them tasks that sound kind of weird to you sometimes, like nobody would benefit from anything. People benefit a lot from having to sit down and really focus on one whole song. Or give them a task and say, like, listen to one album. Like, this is something that people will be like, whoa, okay, don't even know what that means. You know, because everything is a playlist and everything is, like, skipping to whatever, you know. And it's interesting that we have to really go back to where we came from and, like, go very, very, like, almost like a couple of decades back and see, like, okay, what do people used to do back then? They used to meet up and play a record on their, you know, and over again or something, right? And you would be surprised how happy people are. It's like, I didn't know, like, I thought, like, that would be a stupid homework, right? But then I listened to it and I realized, Jesus, thank you for this task. It's so weird sometimes, but this time is really making everybody super advanced and super checking things out and super modern and super technology based. But like right now, the best test that you can give your students is like record yourself playing a song and sing along to it, and that's what you have to share next time. It's really beautiful. I actually really like that. We're going go back to acoustic thing in a way, like go back and listen to the second harmonies, you know, something like this, and then you present it and have them sing along to the second voice, like, because that's the other part. In voice lesson, a lot of my students are missing the idea of actually being able to harmonize some things, because it's fun, and you can't really replace that, but you can replace you can replace the focus of that. You know, what does harmony mean in the end? You can force their brains to get out of the actual general sound and really try to like look for certain detailed sound ideas. So what is the second or third voice in the very back on minute 3 something singing? Try to figure that out. Try to transcribe that. Try to, you know, like be creative with that sense. But I think my recommendation with the whole online world is like stay online for the teaching purpose and have them be kind of almost as little online as possible when they have to make music at home. You know what I mean? Like also go acoustic as well. Do you remember the song you used to sing as a child? You know, where nothing was there but just a child and its head. You know, it's beautiful because people miss that and they don't really know that till they get a funny dumb task like that. Yeah. I'm curious, what are the age groups that you guys are teaching?
15 and between 18.
Okay. So what is your experience with this age group online-wise? It should be actually easier, right, than when it's like 8 and 10, or what is...
The start of the process, the COVID situation, of course, they are not used to use these technologies. And Zoom, we always using the Zoom application in Turkey.
Right.
And the first of all, the problem is in Turkey, we have a weak connection, internet connection. Because of this, we lived some problems. And they have to use sometimes they can't use Wi-Fi. They have to use the headphones internet connection. Because of this, they was really low. Because of this, I can't hear them. They can't hear me. We lived some problems. But 1 or 2 months later, we solved some problems, and the government gave extra internet to them, and we solved many problems. And we have a area in different area. We use Zoom, and we have uploaded the videos to there, and they can watch our videos and sounds from there.
Good. So that they, in the end, afterwards, could kind of just do their own checkup again.
Yes. If they missed the lesson, they can watch us from there, and they can learn what they want.
Amazing. Well, you're talking about a problem that's, you know, we can't always expect that everybody's internet is great, especially when we go global. You know, I think in Germany, we are lucky that most of the households are kind of, hopefully, or if not, at least, okay, here's maybe one tip.
In Spain, everybody in the remotest village says our internet is much better than the internet in Germany.
Really? Well, here in Barcelona, I've experienced something else, but I think it's, well, whatever, right? Every household is kind of different. In our setting, like you guys, you have working internet connection on the phone, right? So far, kinda? Well, okay, here's what I for myself definitely have been using, especially because we had shitty internet connection here, but for a while, and now it's better, but having the backup of, for example, using your phone internet in case anything goes down, or what we also used to do, for example, when I gave workshops in, I did like a hybrid version once in the Wannsee Forum, where it's different kind of, you know, it was more like music oriented, not just voice, but like it was always about producing some sort of audio walk or something with audio, right? So, but then there were people from Sri Lanka, people from the Mongolai, people from Germany were there. It's like, but like a group wasn't present, and the other ones were like kind of from all over the world. It was amazing, but super challenging as well. And what the class that came there actually did, they just like brought. There was also small portable Wi-Fi things that you can get that are not too expensive, but where you can kind of like put internet, where the internet can be carried with you along the way when you have to travel somewhere where the internet is just supposed to be super bad, or where, certain rooms are having different connections to the actual router. If you have the chance to connect your computer, for example, to this actual very old school cable that is connected to the router, it's always recommended. My reality is I never do this because for some reason I'm always somewhere else than next to the router. But, it is, if you have the chance to set up your home situation like this, you're super safe. Unless all of a sudden your internet in general goes down. But, that is something that makes you not have to be too worried about the internet connection. But,
well, our partner Matthias Kreb, he says, like, if we use Gemulus, we should always use the LAN cable.
For sure, I can imagine that, because that's almost so that there's just little, take away all the extra tasks that the online setting will need from you, right? I'm curious, Özlem, like how are your students internet wise? Like is that okay, or is it also very middle?
Yeah, actually, my students, I'm like you actually. I'm living in between Turkey and UK, and my students are mostly in London.
Okay.
When they are at school, because some of them are going to boarding schools, when they're at the schools, it's like horrible. But when they are at home, it's generally okay.
Right.
Yeah, but from my side, I'm trying to use my phone's internet mostly.
Right.
Otherwise, Wi-Fi doesn't really serve me well.
But your internet seems to be good through the phone, so if
yeah,
that
because
works for you, it's good.
Yeah, now it's fine. Yeah, and especially we are doing online concerts as well.
Nice.
Yeah, because in quarantine times, it was impossible to have a real audience and concerts.
Right.
And we had concerts on YouTube and on Facebook. It was nice, but it's really difficult to understand. Although someone is checking the connection and everything, it's always really difficult to feel secure if they can hear us, if everything is fine, you can't always check it. But yeah, it's really difficult to have online concerts.
For sure. It's always helpful to maybe, have other people, technicians who are really like, depending on what the format is and of course the financial setup, but like live streams is the same thing. It just have someone who's really good with that, because that makes life for, if there can be, if the team can consist of the actual teachers and then a technician who is just there to make sure the recording works, it's going to be less of a stress and extra stress. There's enough to be taken care of.
Nowadays it's much better, but at the beginning of the pandemic it was really hard to
I can imagine. I can imagine. Yeah. But it's amazing to see that we're moving forward with that. I feel like a lot of live streams are getting better, and
definitely things are getting better, which is super nice.
Yeah. But I think we all agree on that the better the quality of the whole production is, or the lesson, the more fun it is. There's nothing more annoying than just constantly waiting and then you maybe drop out, or it's just everything is kind of based on these small little details, but the details make the difference. Good audio quality, if you want a better video quality.
And now I can't believe we are even able to rehearse from a distance. Museums will help me and my colleagues especially really well, really, because we try to have a project, online project. I was stuck in Turkey and I have a trio with cello and piano. My colleagues were in the UK, in their home actually, and we were trying to record a project. And my brother saw how difficult was it for us. Really, it was really horrible, because we discovered application called sound fee, sound fees, or something like this. And we were trying to hear each other, but connection was bad, and somehow you need to play together.
But you are also like you were doing a workshop with that, right? Or do I remember correct that how to actually play and rehearse together online, or is it coming up?
In Musiandra, we had this experience so far with four-hand piano.
Yes.
And next week, there will be a workshop here at the same Zoom conference room on that topic, where we will talk about the experiences and how we will go on, because like four-hand piano is one thing, and the band with more than 5 instruments will be another thing.
Nice.
I listened to the concert. It was really amazing how they were playing together. It was really nice to see it as a musician.
Amazing. Yeah, I would like to join if I'm around there, because it's something that interests me as well. Even though like I kind of like I've not really used the live playing together yet, just in the lesson thing. It's just sometimes I'm just also a bit like, how fast will they understand and how fast can we move forward in terms of a lesson that is only 30 minutes or 60 minutes, because it takes a couple of minutes to set up the right way.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, yeah, again, like I'm sharing a little bit my experience. I know that there are a bunch of different experiences depending on what instrument you're playing or who you are as a teacher and everything, but I think the idea of just getting inspired by different versions and different people, and it's always going to be it can always get better, but I think the best feedback is the moment your students actually like to continue online and that they're having a good time, it's already working out, right? And I think if there's a way to find a way between like online teaching and maybe see them in person, that's cool. But in the end, like I'm happy to be teaching online simply for the fact that, like with you, like as them, the idea of living in 2 countries requires so much organization anyways. And if you kind of have the chance to take your work with you and nobody's dependent on your schedule, or if there are more people involved and then maybe, children, and things always come up and you have the chance to actually negotiate without them standing in front of a closed door, it is helpful. It is helpful to you as the teacher. I don't necessarily say that it's, I think it's, a lot of students also really appreciate the old school way of coming into the room and making music together, but.
Well, I wanted to also mention that it's like in the Musiandra project, we have been meeting once a week, like every Friday. And so we all knew each other, but it was such a totally different feeling. For example, when some of us went to Turkey, or when the piano people came to Berlin, and we were all sitting around one table and actually being together. And this was also the thing with the students in the four-hand piano. They had the concert here in Berlin the first week of November, and they came from France and from Iceland. And afterwards, after they have met personally, they started playing together online. But before that, it's like, if you don't know the others, it's like, what am I going to do? Why should I do that? But knowing the others, knowing that it worked, then it got to this effect that people would go on doing it.
Well, I think we should not erase the actual goal that we're playing live, and I think that's a very important thing to tell whoever is going on an online session. It's like, ciao. I think it's just very important to make sure that nobody thinks it's going to replace everything that we are doing when we're doing live music, because it can't. And it's not about that the playing together thing is not possible. It's about we're human beings, and we human beings, we are actually pretty simple. We are animals that need other animals. It's as simple as that, so that people are suffering from anxiety by just being, even though you're busy and you're working and all of these things, but like we are not meant to be locked in front of a screen. Right now I feel like I'm talking with you and it's all cool, but then the moment I leave the room, it's like, oh wow, that was just 2 hours of bubble in the internet, which is not a problem if you also have everything else that's going wrong. You know, I'm in between Berlin and Barcelona. So in Berlin is all my projects and my bands and my work and all of these things. But, you know, my partner lives here and his kids are here. So it's a different setup when I'm here. The idea that both can be combined is super crucial. I got stuck in Barcelona when the whole thing happened in March. So we had the whole lockdown for 4 months, not leaving the apartment, right? So I think everybody saw this in the news. We did the whole, like, okay, patchwork family, being locked in that was insane. And for me, teaching online was actually really helpful because I felt like there was a little bit of a connection to the world that all of a sudden closed down for a second, right? But it's not ever going to replace sitting in front of someone, giving someone a hug, you know, or even if you don't give someone a hug, just like having this person experience another human being in front of you. And I think that's if you would ask me, like, how I would want to, you know, sell online lessons in a way, it's like it's the most amazing way of just connecting from all over the world. But then the major goal would be to have a time where people could meet or rehearse or perform, you know, to just have them realize, because that is the goal. Not like the goal is not to isolate yourself even more. The goal is when you are isolated, how to not get isolated, you know, but not to isolate yourself more. And it's very tricky, but it's just important that the students understand that. In a way, right? Yeah, I mean, again, like, I'm super happy if you have more questions or anything that comes up. I'm also very curious about everything that's happening with the Musiandra and the different workshops. And probably there will be things that I will be learning that I can say, hey, by the way, I figured out how to hear my piano there, and I can just forward it and, like, here's the link or something, right?
Ur just wrote the address down of the piano concert that is also available on YouTube and via our Musiandra website, isn't it?
Yes. Amazing. Thank you so much. I will check that out. That's great. I think it's super interesting. Yeah. And again, I mean, now most of all of you are kind of already out of the meeting, but I'm just repeating again, like, I will just send you, Dorlis, a file where you have, like, a little bit of the step-by-step explanation of what you need for Zoom specifically. Try to translate it into whatever else you need to do, because it's always about the same thing, setting up the right things. Once you do this in Zoom, it might make more sense when you actually do this in whatever else device you're using. Again, like, maybe you can put me in CC when you forward this to the other members so that they have my mail address or my contact. If there's anything that comes up or any questions you have, I'd be super happy to, you know, just answer it or, you know, schedule a short meeting or whatever, you know. Just if you can, make tests with some of your friends or something. Just like setting up, hey, can you hear me? Can you know, I did this yesterday evening, for example, with a student of mine. Just checking up different levels, having her do the same thing. You know, trying things and then record the whole lesson to then listen back to it. You know, do a recording of yourself rather than just adjusting here, because it's always a little bit different. That's the only thing I maybe would like to just let you know. But again, yeah, and be okay with things not working out. It's technique, and I think you're already doing great. So I think that's so much from my side. Do you have any questions, anything else to add or say or?
Thank you, Mia. It was really helpful.
I'm happy if I could help. You know, there's always the thing about if there's one thing, if someone can take one thing out of a workshop that they didn't know, then it was good. So I hope that you could have a couple of things that would help you out.
Thank you, Mia and Tolis. It was a really good meeting and it was really useful. It's really good to meet you. I hope we will see each other face to face one day.
Yeah, I hope so too. It's
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dorlis.
So I hope that we will have more fruitful workshops afterwards. Thank you very much, Mia.
Thank you,
I think
Dorlis,
it's
for
like,
organizing it.
it's always important to have somebody who says, I have experiences, I know it's difficult, but it works, and don't give up. Something like that.
That's the biggest, man. And have fun with it, because it actually can be fun once you know how to do it the right way. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Right?
And we keep in touch.
Bye-bye.
We keep in touch. I will send you a mail
you.
right after this one.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.